We are connected to Facebook. Good evening, everybody, and good evening, Martino Marangoni, our very special guest for tonight. What we are going to do tonight is a new talk format we haven't done so far. For the last 2 years, we invited over 20 guest curators to have a look at the portfolios of our members and select their 10 favorites. And our current guest curator is Martino Marangoni. And tonight we have the opportunity to talk about the process of selecting, his reasons about choosing the work he did. And I'm very happy that 7 of the 10 chosen DFA members are also present to have in-depth conversation with Martino about the work he liked and he chose. I'm handing over to Wolfgang Zurborn now. Wolfgang invited Martino as a guest curator, and I think you two have a long history, don't you?
Yes, I know Martino Marangoni since a long time. I often visited him in Firenze, did many workshops there and also exhibitions, and I really like his work as photographer, as teacher, and as gallerist. Also, he is very involved in the medium photography. And I could see that he's also interested in German photography. I did many years ago, I think, a lecture about German photography, and he was very surprised that there is such a big range of different styles in German photography. Do you remember? And yeah, because I think the most they know in the other countries is the Becher School, and they think that's all what's about German photography. And yeah, so I could see that there is a big interest in this theme. So I said it's a good idea for me to invite him and to show him on the website of the German Photographic Academy.
Yeah. What I realized is that Martino is like a photographer himself, with education as a photographer, but he has been teaching since 1977. And the Studio Marangoni Foundation he founded is already like, I think, 30 years old now. Maybe you can give us an idea about what it is, what's happening there.
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Boris, for inviting me, and Zurborn and Wolfgang to nominate me. I think, as you said, I feel very kind of I feel fortunate to have known you, Wolfgang, because you were the person who opened a new window to German photography. And I don't remember how back it was, but it was certainly in the late 90s or something, probably at a rencontre in Arles.
For sure.
And you know, Studio Marangoni was founded, as Boris said, 30 years ago, pretty much this year. The scope of the foundation was to bring photography to the center of public attention in a city which is, especially in those days, very much conserving and looking back to a history, taking very little notice of anything that was contemporary. So the reason me and a group of friends and colleagues, we decided it was a time to bring photography to the cultural life of Florence, was because I had been teaching for many years in Florence, but for a foreign school, receiving primarily study abroad students from the US and other countries. And after many years of that, I realized that we needed to do something for the local public. So in the late 80s, we were able to get a space and start in my own studio a number of classes, which then immediately kind of became more popular. And I managed to get some funding from a photographic company. And also around this initiative, I managed to kind of round up a lot of very involved and then beginning to be quite well-known photographers like Gabriele Basilico and Mimo Iodice and Ferdinand Luciana, who have been members, for the first few years, and we could offer workshops and exhibitions. And fortunately, I've been going to Arles since the mid-'80s, and Arles has always been, for me, a place to meet, and discover European and American photographers. But as Italians tend to be more oriented towards the French and American culture, the German was kind of overshadowed by, as you said, Wolfgang, but it was overshadowed by the success of the Becher school, the Düsseldorf school. And frankly, I was a bit skeptical of it, and I could not quite get so engaged, and also for what my views of photography in those days were, I oriented my selection of international photographers in other direction. But eventually, then I, thanks to Wolfgang, and also I must say Wolfgang, and soon after was Joachim Schmidt, who also I met in London at a festival there. I in the early 2000s, I decided it was time to start getting some workshops and exhibitions from your country. So we did that, and Wolfgang and Joachim have been several times, and but that's pretty much it. Much later, I've been working, like actually recently with Petr Bielobreski, who his work I find really amazing, and so I'm really keen to get to know more about what you're all doing, and this opportunity for me has been a wonderful chance to know other photographers who have a different approach that is far from being this kind of objective idea of photography,
Maybe before we get into the single works of our colleagues here present, maybe we start first by introducing your curator statement. And what I found interesting in your statement is that you were looking for a balance. Yeah, you described this balance between conceptual complexity and aesthetic sophistication, but not overly conceptualized. And I also realized you were looking for emotional involvement. Maybe you can describe this balance between the elements that are important for you in a photographic work, again, with your words.
Yeah, well, as I myself come from understanding photography as a very personal way to express my views of the world. I studied, in the 70s photography in New York, and sort of grew up in the idea that we walk around with a camera and we capture stuff that is in front of us, but which represents sort of usually an image that is already inside our heads. And so we're looking to reinforce our ideas of what is important and meaningful in our society, in our world. And my whole life I've been doing that, looking for pictures that are somehow about the world, but also about myself in this world. And so the idea that a photographer should not be projected in the image, for me, I found it all very unnatural and very odd. And I still think that. And the idea that an image can only be devoid of an emotion is also very odd. And looking at all of your people, your members' work, proved to me that it is, that the whole operation of the Düsseldorf School was totally artificial. I don't know. I mean, I'm not certain about what I'm saying because I'm not an academic. I haven't made a real study, but I find that the work that I've looked at, as you were saying, comes from different genres of photography. Some are more documentary, some are much more artifacts created with, and so, but for me, I enjoyed looking at them, and I don't care whether they are documentary or whether they're artifacts and manipulated, because I think that photography, especially today, is all that together. And I think also that it's never been so interesting as today. Photography is probably going through the most interesting part of its history because of the complexity and the intricacy of many ways to bring it forward. And particularly in the past, I think 10, 15 years, I think photography has become, from my point of view, is really the most interesting, important art form today, and becoming more and more so. I think we're just really in a phase of growth and creativity, which is amazing.
Maybe we can go deeper when we see the single work of our members here, because originally, well, this is our first edition. We said like 1 hour, but time is moving on. We have 20 past 7 already, and I would like to have like 5 minutes minimum for each of our members present. So you can share it, or I can share it, whatever is more convenient for you.
I don't know how to do that. Okay, here. One show which also really helped me look at the complexity of and the variety of photography in our era was a show which Francesca Nori, who is a German-Italian curator who at that time was curating the Strozzina, which is the contemporary section of the Palazzo Strozzi in Florence. Some of you, I'm sure, probably visited. And at that time, she was interested in putting together a photography show regarding the idea of photography not as a documentary aspect, but a more manipulative and complex form of constructing an image. And she approached me because she was not very much aware of what was happening in Italy. So I sort of helped her bring in some Italian artists. And the final result was really very interesting. I'm sure you can recognize many of these photographers, But I think that, ever since this show, I've been looking at photography, not myself, but I think everybody, with a much more open mind, and I think that's, I can close that now and stop sharing. Okay, so because what happened, I think in the past 20 years is that the separation between photographic genres is diminishing to the point that nowadays I think it's kind of pointless to ask whether a photograph is a document or it's a mise en scène, you know, and obviously it's interesting to know the background and the process, but somehow I'm more interested in the narrative, in what it communicates and what the story is, you know, because images are so immediate, you know, and they communicate emotions and feelings, and one asks himself whether this is true or not. I think it's sort of like asking whether, when you read a novel, whether it's real or not real. You know, yeah. We're all living in a way in a fictional. You know, sometimes I look at the news, I read the newspaper, and it's so full of fake news. You know, so you know the world reality and non-reality is so apparent these days that I think that is also in the photographic media. I think it's become really a very aspect which I think artists are working on, you know, deliberately to pose this sort of question about who we are, where we are, and whether you get to it from, you know, straight image or a non-straight image. I think it's
maybe we just get into the work now and just ask the artists we have right now, what the impulse for the work was, and then we can become more specific. Okay. I have all the pictures open. Do you want to open your screen? Do you want me to do it?
Maybe I should. I'll then. I guess I have to share the.
You have to share your screen again. Yes.
Again. All right. Now, what I've done also is I've. I took you, as Wolfgang, I sort of took your advice somewhat, and to think about possible Italian photographers who have somehow, I think, maybe relate to some of the works that I've done, you know, and see maybe if you do know them, or I mean, I wish we had time to do a whole lecture, but, you know, so I'm just going to.
Let's start at the top. Like, I think the first one in your list, if you scroll up, is just move up. If you go back,
no, at the bottom, yes.
We have the single images. You scroll up to the top, and if we start from top, I think the first one is Ute's Bärenmädchen, and Ute is present via telephone.
Okay. Hello, Ute.
Hi.
Now, yes, well, certainly your work seems like it's a very personal work, and
yes, it is.
And your experience in North America and the story that you tell is really unique and fascinating. And what I'm intrigued in is how these images tell me sort of like they seem like the characters from a fairy story, from a child's book, and I really like the fact that you're combining real kind of I'm sorry, the words are sometimes hard to grasp, but you know, it's a research on this population, you know, right?
Yes.
And
yeah.
And you actually do not go there with the typical outlook of a National Geographic photographer, fortunately, you know?
No, yeah. No,
and
not really.
And so again, to go back to the feeling and to the being yourself and expressing yourself, I think that you really are making pictures which are extremely captivating and powerful. And
thank you. Yeah.
And also diptychs are not always so easy. It becomes often a graphic sort of overpowering element, which you are obliged to look at, you know, from a compositional point. But you avoid that. But I would like to go and see some of your pictures. I have to go down here, I think, to get into your here.
Yeah. I can say a little bit about the picture you have chosen.
Yeah.
On the right side, the girl is Mia Wallace, and Mia Wallace is a character from Tarantino's film Pulp Fiction. She is a very strong woman, and at that time when the film came out, there were not very much strong characters in this in women. No, there were no very much strong women characters, and this girl you see on the picture is very young. She is 18, 17, and she wears this costume, Mia Wallace, and she was at the street with this costume, and other people recognized her in this role. So for her, it's a very old film. Recognized her as Mia Wallace, and that I found very interesting. That very young girls could identify herself in this for them, very old role. And at the other side, you found this wild animal. And for me, wild animals, most of the time, I photograph them, especially in this book, Beer Girls, from that this work is, from a great distance. So the animals are not very big. And in this case, this fox is a little bit, another ankle. And for me, these wild animals are like the beer girls. So they are wild and free, and you should be careful that they don't get caught like the girls. You can only see them from a distance. You can't own them, and they need our protection.
Lovely.
I think that was a very beautiful description, Ute, that added a lot to the pictures we saw on the webpage. May I suggest that we just leave it here and go to the next image of your selection and have like a 5-minute conversation with each of the photographers here, and then at the end, see if we can find something combining in your selection that has not been described in your statement. You have to go back on the webpage via. You have to go back, not on the webpage, but on the top level in the browser.
Yeah, I turn off this, and then Ute, the photographer which I'm associating with you may not agree, but somehow I'm making selections that are more gut level and not so much rational. But there's an Italian photographer called Federico Claverino. And in case you don't know him, he's doing also lots of books which are about real stories, but in a way that are very innovative. And the book that I was looking at recently is called Ghost Stories. And so
Okay.
that's your
okay,
clue.
I can look at it. Thank you.
Okay, so do I go on to the next?
No, if you just scroll up, I think if you stay to that one image, if you scroll up to your selection,
okay,
to the single picture. So now we go down. Andreas is not here. The next picture is Gisoo.
Gisoo, okay, Gisoo.
Gisoo is here.
I love your work also because it's. I like the fact that you are such a great craft person and that you put together images and you use also other medias to make an image which is also, again, very personal, very kind of, I presume, autobiographical somehow. Let me see what I put some notes. Okay. But all of you, every one of your works is really about changing the perception of ordinary life and connecting, as you say, you connect pictures, elements to form a new reality. And the complexity of your work coincides with your imagination of the real. And photography sometimes is able to do it with one shot, even, but sometimes, and you do it magistrally. You paint on it with other materials.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're probably, are you Japanese or Korean?
Korean.
Okay, and I don't know too much about Korean art, but what I see tends to be very subtle and very poetic, and that's what your work is, and I find it's really kind of magical. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Gisoo, would you like to add something from your side as a background to the work?
Yes, the work seems real, but auch seems auch surreal. I want to connecting from several photos and campaign a new photo, and he has right. So I want to show poetic and combination of several situations. So that's it. It's enough.
Gisoo wants to remain poetic. No, I like your work very much as well. Martino,
well, the person I kind of associate you with is actually not Italian, although she's lived in Italy for over 20 years. She's one of my colleagues and full-time staff. Her name is Baerbel Reinhard, and she also creates amazing juxtapositions and overlaying of pictures about nature using some different materials and techniques. So that's who came to my mind.
Okay, thank you.
So next we have
Torsten,
all the way in China. I'm honored.
Yes. Oh no, I'm honored.
Well, as a street photography, I could not be drawn to your work, although I'm not quite sure this is street photography, and that's really amazing, question mark, which I don't even need to know. It doesn't matter. But I think your photographs are very much along with what I do and I like, and I think that you are, in a way, have a very subtle. I would like to show some. We don't have time maybe to go see more people, but I'd like to see a couple more. And there you are. Very ordinary things, but the ordinary things don't have to be boring. Oh. And I think that they become extraordinary if you see that way. And it's not easy. And also, it seems like you have a good time looking at ordinary things with a sense of humor. One other aspect which I would like to give you all credit for is that, fortunately, you are wiping out this stereotype of German being always serious. And a lot of you have a great sense of humor, starting from you and Wolfgang. Obviously we have great laughs when we meet. And so stereotypes are fine as long as you know that they're a stereotype and they don't mean anything. Look at that. That's really funny picture. Okay, so do you want to say something, Torsten?
No, I just remember, like, I just see the pictures. I haven't looked to those pictures for a long time, but I noticed, okay, they are from different places, but places also don't matter to me. It's just the personal attitude to, what I feel about things and situations I encounter on streets. So it's street photography, I think. Not a classical way maybe, but I find my themes on the street, and it's not staged. Like the picture with the lady bending over was just, I saw something, I expected something different, but always a chance comes by. And this lady was bending at that moment. I just wanted to take a picture of her anyway, but she was just by chance acting in an even better way.
I agree. I was reading a text by Christian Cojol, who probably you all know. He's a great French photographer, but known mainly because he is the founder of Agence Vue. And I was reading an article about a show which I saw actually in Vevey this is the show. Great work. And his text, this is also very constructed on the history of photography. Two Swiss photographers. If you go to the Image Festival Vevey, that's a main show there. And the title of his text is "Every Image is a Construction." So the separation between street photography and stage photography is really a fine, very fine line. Mm. And okay, so maybe, I don't know, we should move faster, but thank you. I enjoyed looking at your pictures. And if we have a chance somewhere out in China, we can talk more about it.
Yes. Thank you.
So now. Wolfgang. Well, your pictures certainly are unique. In fact, I didn't give you any. Torsten, yes, Torsten. I did think of somebody who is a former student of mine who is actually a street photographer, but doesn't look like he's a street photographer. His name is Nicolo Panzeri, Panzere. let's see. Well, with Wolfgang, in fact, I always thought, looking at your pictures, that you actually cheat, that you make collages. Because I really find it very difficult to believe that all that chaos can be all in one place and make sense at the same time. You know, you have become a master of collage street photography. And so I don't know, do you ever cheat?
If I ever put pictures together, so
Yeah.
I did some montage by the Labyrinth of Science. So it was not that I'm cutting the images, but I put images together. And it was the first thing that I think it was very important to can later find the collage in the single image. So it was a step in between. Yes. So.
Yeah. And your pictures, you know, are so recognizable because you work on very different sort of subjects, and a lot of them are about traveling. You know, the last show we had was you know, about India, and yeah. But wherever you go, it's a Disneyland, and because I think you are a bit a character from Disney World.
Can be.
Which one?
It was one critic was once writing, it's like Mickey Mouse and Kafka are meeting and having a good time together. So I thought this was a very good critic on me.
I don't remember the name, but there is a Disney character who is this great big monster, nice, good monster that scares children, but he's actually very good. What's his name? Anyway, so also I don't know if all of you have, any of you have seen Wolfgang on the dance floor, but he's a fantastic dancer.
Yeah, I think dancing is very important for me. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think there's probably some correlation between
absolutely,
you know, your work and your way you move on a dance floor. It's a really unique experience. Congratulations. Now, how do I go back?
You have to go back in the browser.
Axel.
Hello.
Hi, Axel. You had me really puzzled at the beginning because I thought you were really finding some really extraordinarily strange places.
Yes.
And then I realized that some of them were probably strange places, but then some of them were actually you placed things, and I love how you go from one to the other. I guess, you know, I'm still not sure which. Let me go find your. Oh, I want to. How do I do that?
Up.
Sorry, I'm a bit clumsy on this. There.
Okay.
I mean, this could be a straight photograph.
Yes. Shall I explain some things?
I don't know. Do you want to? You don't have to. Yeah.
Good. It's a very personal approach to this special little town in the middle of Germany. It's called Bebra, and Bebra is a town where my wife is born, and my parents-in-law have a house in that town. And I started when I first came to Bebra, I imagined immediately I have to do something with this special town, and I started to make documentary work. So I photographed all the houses and interiors and everything what got my interest. And at the end, I wasn't really satisfied, and I went to the town museum of Bebra, it's a special townhouse, and there in this town hall, I saw the model of the town hall in a plexiglass vitrine, and in very dim light and very poor room, and then it made click. And I thought, I want everything to look. I want the whole theme of Behrend to look like this, what I've seen. So I imagined to make a miniature wonderland of this city. And it was a long time to experiment, to get the inside to the outside, and making montages. And at the end, there were these pictures, and I think they are much stronger than the documentary work, because they are seems to be documentary, but they are all fictive. But all these elements are from this town Behrend. It's all this special cosmos of Behrend. And so
yeah, well,
it's very surrealistic, and I think the city seemed to me a bit surrealistic, and I think with this collages I got the feeling of the town.
yeah.
And this is very personal, because this scenes here, this is made in the house of my parents-in-law. They have all these things in that house, the rooms, the interiors, and I got much of the interiors of their house inside this work, and combined it with other houses, and so it's a very strange project, but very personal project at the end.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can see that you come from a documentary sort of city observer, but then there's something obviously that doesn't quite work, and I like this kind of suspension, you know, like a combination of the two traditions that
Yes,
are very well blended, you know, the constructed and the documentary. The photographer that I wonder whether you must probably know him is Luigi Ghirri.
Luigi Ghirri.
Yeah.
Yes, I know him very well. Yes, I have several books from him.
Yeah, I think there's something, you have something in common.
Yes.
Because he also likes to keep you unsure on the nature, whether it's real or not.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And the way he looks at the, you know, the cityscape is familiar to me, like he is, you know. Have you ever worked in Italy photographically?
No.
Yeah.
My complete work, I think, is done in Germany. Now I'm very engaged in photographing my hometown, Hamburg, but it's documentary work.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to your picture again, your selection, just move it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Knut, the second.
Knut Wolfgang Maron.
Ah, yeah.
So.
Okay. Sorry. Well, okay.
I think if you move down a bit, move more down, you have the images.
Ah, there.
This is the work you selected.
That's right. Yeah, well, this was actually the most moving project. I did want to include it because as I said in my statement, I wanted really to have those that somehow dealt with a very personal, emotional experience, and obviously your experience is a terrible, you know, story, and the way you dealt with it, I thought was really poetic, very, very.
These were the key pictures. These two pictures were the beginning of the whole project. It was my mother when she was having an eye operation, and I took care about her. And the whole story is about life, but it is also about death. And I was trying to get images which are somehow fragile and vulnerable. So I took care about 5 years for my mother, and from time to time I was able to do very intimate images, and also images which are showing in the end what is going to be left.
Yeah, well, I think that it's really tender. I wish I could have done something like this about my mother, but not everybody's able to be open in front of such a difficult experience. And your objects become testimonies of your attachment to your mother, and they become really alive. This is one of my favorites. It's really complex, but and also you, as well as the first project we looked at with diptychs, it's very difficult to work on. I don't know, is this a book?
Yes, it's also in a book. It was a huge exhibition in 3 different places in some major museums in Germany.
Yeah, I can see that it worked really well on a book.
And these are more or less also the choice of the diptychs, and the diptychs are representing also the double pages of the book.
Well, I have, I've really it's pointless to really comment anymore because they talk for themselves. Bravo.
We have Esther and we have Sabine being here.
Sabine, hello Sabine. I think we met in Berlin.
Sorry, so hey, Martino, nice to see you again here. Yeah, we know each other from our cooperation with Letterverein and Studio Marangoni.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to the happening finally.
Yeah, but actually I won't be with you that time because right now I'm having my sabbatical.
Oh.
Well, I'm not teaching at the moment, but probably
well,
we'll
good for you. Good for you.
Yes, yes.
You're probably happier to do that than. Well, this picture here, I would like to tell you, I don't know if you know the film American Beauty by Sam Mendes.
Yes. I know the situation you're mentioning.
So it's true. So then, this is fantastic. I was hoping that it was not just me, but that scene is my favorite scene in the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it's a magical, mesmerizing scene in the film. And I think you are doing it in a different way. I don't know if that's street photography or you're setting it up. The rest of your work seems to be ambiguous, whether it's set up or not. But that seems to be, again, over and over again, the case. And there's something very suspended, like that flying balloon in Sam Mendes. And I don't know if you remember the conversation between the two the couple looking in that scene is how it's about beauty in life, and how he's the guy, when he sees something that gets his, so beautiful, it just amazing experience, and it transforms him. And I know beauty is kind of out of fashion for some curators, some people, but for me, it isn't. If something is beautiful, I think all of your work, another element that I think goes through all of your work is that you look for beauty in one way or the other, not a cliche beauty, a real experience of something that is moving you. And I think that's, if you can capture that aspect of life, in your art, then hooray! It's a big achievement. And somehow, I don't know why some people get embarrassed by it and think it's cliche or corny, but of course, if it's cliche or corny, it's not really beautiful, it's just boring. But these pictures are not boring, they're not cliche. Well, do you want to tell us a bit about them? Another photographer, this reminds me of Francesca Woodman. Is she somebody up in your category?
So Francesca Woodman, I think that was the very first exhibition I saw when I was 18 years old, by the way. But so what could I tell you? So you were wondering if the images are staged or set up or not. I think it's both. Usually I start with a kind of idea and start with the decision of making a picture, for example, of an object or of a person. But then that is just like a starting point, and then it usually goes on like life is going on. You never know what's happening, and usually the situation where we started ends up somewhere totally different. And so the images are usually, it's more like a cooperation between the persons I'm photographing, and also cooperation with the objects and the circumstances. So there's a lot of things inside which are not explainable, actually.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of, this one is similar to the flying balloon. It's very hard to to understand. It's very suspended. It's a light. Your work is very light. It's not heavy. Do you agree? It's something like in mid-air, caught in between, or something kind of suspended in time. Space and time is sort of like.
So it's maybe like in a way fluent.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I like to show these images in the form of a projection, because then they are not grabbable, or even less grabbable than they are. So you're not sure like what is going on, or is it real or not. I'm not talking about reality. I'm just talking about do I see an image, or do I see something of my own concept of life, or something like that. So I like to ask questions. Yeah.
Shall we move on to Esther? Because
I would love to spend more time talking, but I agree that we've got
Knut is also here. Knut.
There you are, Esther.
Esther is.
I remember a discussion not that long ago that people were having, not me, but that they wouldn't consider this photography. Do you know what I'm talking about, Esther?
Esther needs to. Yeah, here she is.
Yes. I know this. I know this reaction to my work. Yes.
It's a bullshit reaction, because you're actually using a camera, right?
Yes, of course.
Oh, it's a photograph. I think that stretching the language of photography is a very important aspect of these days. The two photographers from Italy, which I'm not sure you know, are both of them working with a three-dimensional idea of image. One is Silvio Wolf, written the German way. Mm-hmm. He's from Milan, and I think you probably would like his work if you don't know it already. He's my generation. He's not a young guy. Well, a young guy who's very popular these days is Lorenzo Vitturi. You may have seen his work. He's quite big, and I think that making sculptures with photograph is a very big challenge. Very, very, we're talking about the two-dimensional image, which, as you all know, in the two-dimension, you can create the three-dimension in very interesting ways. And a lot of you do it. Gisoo does it, and Axel does it, and you all do. You look at the world in a three-dimensional way, but make it two-dimensional. And Esther, you're kind of doing the opposite, because you're photographing flat surfaces and making them three-dimensional and I find that really very original, very challenging.
Yeah, I'm quite interested in the point where three-dimensionality and two-dimensionality switch. So I try to create irritation also for the persons who are looking at my work.
Yeah.
To give the starting point to get into perception, so really attention to watch at the picture. And in fact, I like very much your choice, the work you chose, because it was the first one where I really for the first time folded also the Alu-Dibond so that it really becomes three-dimensional. So it's more close to an object than to a flat or two-dimensional photography.
How big are they?
It's different. The one that is visible now, it's about 45 centimeters.
Okay, yeah, small.
And the one in your choice is 1 meter. It depends on the motif. I decide for every motif the size.
Yeah. Groovy. I hope we have a chance to know each other more in the future. I would like to increase my welcome to German photographers, especially since I like your work, and I'm sure a lot of you are good teachers. We have, a new kind of 3-year project with the Kunsthistorische Institute in Florence that they're moving site from one building to another building. And we are going to be doing some documentation of the transformation and the moving of the thing, but also we are going to invite photographers from Germany they have a residency program, so they can stay there and do some project, and maybe we could do a workshop or,
Sounds great.
This is because I'm probably going to be shut off in a second or two, but it is a welcome for future relations, and I would like to see each of you. And so feel free to send me an email. My email, you can get it from Boris or from Wolfgang, and So we can maybe, continue this conversation some other place.
Well,
Thank you very much, Martino.
I enjoyed it.
thank you all.
We
Thank you.
go on from this. Okay.